For 3 straight weeks every Tuesday at 6:00 a.m. My trash can got demolished. Not by wind, not by animals. By Bethany Thornfield, our HOA president, ramming her white Lexus straight into it like it owed her money. I'm standing in my driveway staring at the carnage. Mangled plastic bins split open. Coffee grounds splattered across 20 feet of pavement. Banana peels draped over my mailbox like party streamers from hell. The stench of rotting garbage mixed with motor oil made me gag, Mrs. Cecilia whispered from her fence. She backed up and hit it again, then sat there laughing at the mess. That laugh was her biggest mistake. See, Bethany had no idea I'm an electrician. And she definitely had no idea what I was about to install. In place of that flimsy plastic bin, something that would teach her Lexus a lesson it would never forget. What would you do to your neighborhood, Karen? Drop your HOA nightmare below. Where are you watching from? Let me paint you the picture of how this whole nightmare started. My name is Lucien Delacroix, and 2 years ago, I thought moving to Willowbrook Estates would give my daughter Savannah and me the fresh start we desperately needed. After losing my wife to cancer, I figured a quiet suburban neighborhood with good schools was exactly what a grieving 16-year-old needed for her senior year. Boy, was I wrong. I'm a union electrician, 42 years old. Hands permanently stained with wire insulation residue, calloused from 20 years of crawling through attics and rewiring houses. The work teaches you that most problems have logical solutions. You just need to understand the system and find the right approach. But I'd never encountered a system like Bethany Thornfield. Picture this perfectly coiffed silver hair that never moved in wind. Designer cardigans that probably cost more than my monthly truck payment. And a white Lexus so pristine you could perform surgery on the hood. At 58, Bethany had been HOA president for 8 years. In our 127-home community, long enough to turn a simple homeowners association into her personal kingdom. The woman's voice sounded like a dentist's drill, wrapped in fake politeness. And those designer heels clicked across pavement with the calculated rhythm of an executioner's march. You could hear her coming from 3 houses away, which most neighbors considered an early warning system. The first incident happened 3 weeks after we moved in. Standard Tuesday morning, I placed my regulation black bin at the curb. Exactly per HOA guidelines. Drop Savannah at school, grab coffee, head to the job site. Normal routine for a single dad trying to keep life stable. I come home to what looked like a garbage bomb had detonated in my driveway. Coffee grounds scattered across 20 feet of pavement. Banana peels draped over my mailbox. Broken glass glittering in afternoon sun. The stench hit me like a physical punch. Rotting food mixed with motor oil sharp enough to make me gag. My work boots crunched through the mess as I surveyed the damage. 30 minutes of cleanup again, making me late for work again. Mrs. Cecilia appeared at her fence, voice barely above a terrified whisper. I saw everything from my kitchen window. She used her car raccoons. Bethany Thornfield rammed your trash can with her Lexus. Backed up, then hit it again. Sat there watching the mess spread before driving away. The metallic taste of rage filled my mouth. This wasn't random vandalism. This was targeted warfare. Week 2 brought identical destruction, plus a $75 citation for unsightly debris. Compromising community standards. Week 3. Bethany circling my documenting violations, grass 0.2 inches too tall. Garden hose visible from street. Mailbox numbers improperly positioned. The stress was killing both of us. Savannah started leaving for school early to avoid seeing the garbage explosions. My boss issued warnings about tardiness. College application deadlines loomed, while my daughter watched her new stable home turn into a war zone. By week 4, I'd installed a security camera. That's when I caught her red-handed. Tuesday morning, 6:00 a.m. Bethany's Lexus approaches my trash can at exactly 15 miles per hour. Fast enough for impact, controlled enough to reverse and ram again. The plastic bin exploded like a piñata. Contents arcing across my driveway in perfect destructive symmetry. But here's what made my blood boil. She sat there for 30 seconds afterward, engine purring, admiring her handiwork. Then drove away wearing a satisfied smile. That night I made 3 discoveries. First, 7 families had mysteriously decided to relocate from Willowbrook Estates in 3 years. Second, every single one had endured identical harassment campaigns. Third, They all shared characteristics: minorities, single parents, newcomers who didn't know their rights. The taste of determination replaced bitter anger. Bethany thought she was dealing with another victim, who'd eventually crack under pressure and move away quietly. She had no idea. She just declared war on a guy who builds electrical systems designed to handle 20,000-volt surges and knows exactly how to engineer solutions that shock people back. Week 5 brought Bethany's next escalation. The citation blitz. I'm standing in my driveway at 7:00 a.m., cleaning up the latest garbage explosion, when those familiar designer heels start clicking across the pavement. Like a death march, the sound echoed off garage doors, announcing her approach to anyone within 3 blocks. Bethany appeared with a clipboard, wearing the kind of smile that makes serial killers look friendly. Mr. Delacroix, she says, butchering my name on purpose. I'm afraid we have a serious problem. She hands me a citation for $125. The official reason: repeated violations of waste management protocol, endangering community aesthetics and property values. I scanned the document, noting the fancy letterhead. This is for putting my trash can exactly where your rules say to put it. Your bin placement demonstrates deliberate non-compliance, she replies, voice dripping with fake authority. Your failure to prevent debris scatter constitutes ongoing neighborhood disruption. The nauseating mix of her expensive perfume and morning coffee grounds perfectly captured this absurd situation. A woman citing me for messes she created. Behind me, I could hear Savannah's bedroom window slam shut. She'd started closing it every Tuesday morning to avoid seeing the chaos, and if I don't pay her, smile widened like a crack in porcelain. Property liens are expensive to resolve. I'd hate to see your daughter's college plans disrupted by foreclosure proceedings. That's when she crossed from annoying to dangerous. That night, I did what any electrician does, facing a complex problem. I studied the system back when I was learning electrical code. My mentor always said the devil's in the details, and selective enforcement could void an entire inspector's authority. Same principle applies to HOAs. Apparently 3 hours of reading revealed deliberately vague waste management rules. Lots of subjective language about community standards, without specific measurements. So I grabbed my measuring tape and took a moonlight walk, work boots crunching through autumn leaves. 23 houses on my street all had identical violations to mine. Bins within 6 inches of curb edge, same positioning relative to driveways, but only 5 families had ever received citations. The Cecilias, Rodriguez's, Washingtons, the Kowalskis who'd fled last year, and me. The pattern hit like touching a live wire. During my investigation, I discovered something beautiful. Bethany's property had 17 violations of her own rules. Unauthorized rose trellis, decorative mailbox, painted address numbers. According to her bylaws, decorative elements needed architectural review board approval from herself. I documented everything with timestamp photos, then quietly approached the other targeted families. Mrs. Cecilia invited me into her kitchen, where the smell of jasmine tea couldn't quite mask her fear. She threatened to fine us for our wind chimes, Mrs. Cecilia whispered. Said Asian decorations don't fit community standards. The Rodriguezes shared similar stories. During a hushed conversation by their mailbox, Mr. Rodriguez's calloused hands, Carpenter's hands like mine, trembled slightly as he described Bethany's random property inspections. She makes my kids feel unwelcome in their own neighborhood, he said quietly. Here's where my electrical training kicked in. I filed a formal complaint using Bethany's own citation format, documenting her violations with professional photos. Then I requested an architectural review board meeting for her unauthorized decorations, knowing she couldn't approve her own violations. Without committing fraud, Tuesday brought the usual garbage explosion, but Wednesday night delivered pure entertainment. I watched through my window as Bethany worked by flashlight at 2:00 a.m., frantically dismantling her garden like a reverse burglar. Rose trellis disappeared. Decorative mailbox became plain black metal. The sound of her panicked breathing carried across the silent as she struggled with heavy garden ornaments. But here's the beautiful twist, Mrs. Cecilia had been recording everything from her kitchen window. Thursday morning, Bethany called an emergency HOA board meeting, forgetting the mandatory 72-hour notice requirement. When I showed up with Mrs. Cecilia and her smartphone footage, plus the Rodriguezes as additional witnesses, Bethany had to cancel entirely. The texture of panic was visible in her trembling hand as she shuffled paperwork. Friday brought hastily revised by laws, grandfathering decorative elements prior to 2015, except Mrs. Cecilia's timestamp. Videos proved Bethany's rose trellis was installed last spring, but Bethany's desperation created an unexpected gift. The new rules included a clause about infrastructure modifications for security purposes requiring only basic notification. She just handed me legal cover for whatever I was planning to install. That weekend, my boss pulled me aside at the job site. "Marcus, you've been late 14 times this month. Whatever's happening at home, fix it fast, watching Savannah avoid eye contact at dinner." Stress eating over college applications, while garbage explosions traumatized her morning. I realized bureaucratic warfare wasn't enough. Sometimes you don't rewire the whole system. Sometimes you just upgrade the component that keeps failing. And when someone keeps ramming your property with $4,000 of German engineering, you install something designed to teach physics lessons the hard way. Time to visit the construction supply store and calculate exactly how much concrete it takes to stop Alexis. Week 6 brought Bethany's nuclear option, the guest parking assault. I'm barely awake when my phone buzzes at 6 a.m. with an emergency HOA notification. New rule, effective immediately. No guest parking between 9 p.m. and 7 a.m. Violations subject to $200 citation and vehicle towing. The timing wasn't coincidental. Savannah's study group met Tuesday nights, and her friends always parked on our street. This was targeted warfare disguised as policy. That evening, I watched from my living room window as 3 cars pulled up for study group. Good kids working on college applications, the kind of focused teenagers who give you hope for the future. The smell of Savannah's stress-baking cookies filled the house, her coping mechanism since the harassment started, though she burned half the batches. Now at exactly 9:01 p.m. Bethany's white Lexus appeared like a shark circling prey. She photographed every license plate, measured distances from curbs, documented violations, with the enthusiasm of a meter maid on commission. 10 minutes later, her floodlights blazed to life. Motion-activated spotlights aimed directly at my driveway, bright enough to land aircraft. The harsh white glare turned our front yard into an interrogation room, casting skeletal shadows of my daughter's retreating friends. "Dad, this is insane," Savannah whispered, peeking through blinds. "My friends think we're the neighborhood psychos now." The bitter taste of helplessness filled my mouth as I watched 3 teenagers pack up early, mumbling apologies about not wanting to cause trouble. Their car doors slammed with the finality of social isolation. My daughter's senior year was being destroyed by a middle-aged woman with too much time and too little conscience. That night, I made a decision that would change everything. Back in my apprentice days, my mentor taught me about different approaches to electrical problems. Sometimes you chase shorts through miles of conduit, spending weeks troubleshooting. Sometimes you just install a circuit breaker, rated for whatever punishment the system can deliver. Bethany kept escalating, but her attacks followed a predictable pattern. Always the same target, same method, same Tuesday morning routine. My trash can was ground zero. If I could engineer the right solution for that specific failure point, everything else became manageable. Wednesday morning, I drove to Morrison Construction Supply. Jake Morrison had been a union brother for 15 years, the kind of guy who understands that residential projects sometimes require creative approaches to recurring problems. I need something that looks like a standard trash receptacle, but can withstand significant vehicle impact, I explained, keeping my voice casual. Jake's eyebrows shot up, defined significant. 4,000 pounds at 15 miles per hour. His grin told me everything I needed to know. Brother, you're talking about stopping a car with what looks like a garbage can, polymer concrete or steel-reinforced core. What's the difference? Polymer sets in 6 hours. Steel lasts forever. Both will stop a freight train. He pulled out material samples, concrete chunks that felt like granite under my calloused fingertips. For your application, I'd recommend steel rebar core with polymer concrete shell. Neighbor won't know the difference until they hit it. That's when I learned something that changed my entire perspective on this problem.